we're coming down to the end, and the few sources here are really going to be tie-up sources. And it could be that on Wednesday, we will have an unrecorded Q&A session, etc. Okay, that's probably what we're going to do to bring it all to practical. So, but what I want to do start today, just let's finish. I sent the document. If you could open the document has two sections of Minchas Chinuch, and it's just going to tie up the Sefer HaChinuch we saw last time. If you could open it. Right, I think it's called Army Exemptions 4. What it has is it has the two Minchas Chinuchs commenting on Sefer HaChinuch, and then there are two Yerushalmis that you can follow on the document, or I really suggest that we're going to go to Sefaria because they have very good English translation, and we can also see the commentaries on it. But we're going to do that only after the Rambams. Okay, so we're going to start with the Minchas Chinuch. This is on the issues of the Chosrei Milchama. We're just going to see a couple of quick, this is more or less to tie it up. So the first one is in Taf Kuf Chavav Ot Daled. If you have a Minchas Chinuch easily available, you can follow inside the Minchas Chinuch. It's Siyuf Daled. All of them are on Taf Kuf Chavav, which was the mitzvah of the Chosrei Milchama, the Kohen announcing, and who goes back and who doesn't go back. We saw pretty much the Sefer Chinuch was very much clear, very aligned pretty much with the Rambam, but there are a couple of issues. So one of them is in Siyuf Daled, where he said that we announce the various announcements. Okay, you betrothed a wife, you built a house, made a vineyard, and then it says Yarei V'rach Halevav. And if you remember, we had an argument in the Gemara. What is that referring to? So let's see here. He brings the Gemara. Who plukta b'mishna desota? Everybody see where I am, either on the sheet or in the Minchas Chinuch itself. It's Ot Daled. Okay, hine b'hachraza mi'aish hayarei. So we're talking about the announcement that somebody who's afraid goes back. Who plukta b'mishna desota? Mishnah Daled, Mem Daled Amud Aleph. The Rabbi Akiva Sover Dvarim Kim Mashma'an, meaning literally, you're afraid. She'enu yochel la'amud b'kishrei hamilchama. You just can't handle war, and that already is a reason to go back because we don't want that person there infecting other people with his fear, and that's going to undermine their motivation and their ability to properly carry on the war. Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Rabbi Yossi Sovrim, that no, you can't just be afraid. It's got to be Hainu Hamisyare me Averos Shabiyada. Your fear is that you have Averos, and again, two pshatim in the Rishonim, whether because of that you're afraid you'll get killed because you don't have the Siyata Deshmaya protection, or you're going to endanger people around you because once you deserve to die in battle, the Sultan who's given permission may already take a few people around you. So therefore, you don't go there because you're endangering either yourself or other people. Ella dechad sover dafka avero shel Torah. There is a machlokas between Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Yossi whether the averos are only isurim deoraisa, like almana lekohen gadol. All right, dechad sover afilu averos derabana. I'm the Gemara Shamamud Beis. We saw that Gemara. Aval tarvayu cholkin al Rabbi Akiva. They both argue on Rabbi Akiva. In other words, both of them, what we're going to point out is we have a majority arguing on Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva holds, all you have to do is be afraid, you get to go back. And they say, Mapitom, that's not enough. There has to be, your fear has to be because of Averos. The Rambam kan halacha tezvav posek Rabbi Akiva did varm kimashma'an. We did see that Rambam. We may not have realized that he's paskening like Rabbi Akiva against Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi Aglili. V'hinei afsha rabim cholkin, because it's 2 against 1. There's Rabbi Akiva against Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Posei ke Rabbi Akiva, uvichlal ze im halacha ke Rabbi Akiva mechavei rav, because he's using the rule that Rabbi Akiva trumps even when he's outnumbered. Ein sefer Torah chesed klal hey mashe mifalpel b'zeh v'lo hevi zeh de harambam posek kan halachik Rabbi Akiva af b'chaverov. He's going into these are the klale hapsak in the Gemara. We have rules in the Gemara, for example, halacha Rav and Abaya, halacha Rav, except in certain exceptions. Okay, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel. We have different klalim. So this is a klal, Rabbi Akiva. The halacha is when there are those who argue on it. Tzorchin al Rav Mechaber shekosav ayari me'averos shebiyado. Okay, because the Rav Mechaber here is the Sefer HaChinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch wrote that the Yari is afraid of averos. The Nota Midas HaRambam, Dein Alocha came, Rak Rabbi Akiva, the Advarim Kimashmon. Okay, and so he's wondering why the Sefer HaChinuch went against Rabbi Akiva and Paskan Averos when it seems that the halacha is like the Rambam, like Rabbi Akiva, that it's Averos, that it's even if he's afraid just from war, from bad. Okay, I wanted to see that to tie it up, and then we're going to jump now to halacha chet, ot chet. It's towards the end of the chinuch, but it's in the page. It's just the next one in the page. Again, it comes back to the issue of the yore. Okay, umachrisin miyosha yore hadvarim kimashmaam misheinu yochal lamad bekishir milcham v'uplukta uposek harambam came b'halacha tezvav like Rabbi Akiva umavur beferish haramban ala Torah b'shem Yerushalmi dechol elu shechozin. This is why we want this. What happens to the people who go back? We're talking here about all of them, even the one who's afraid, but also the bonabayas, eres isha. What happens when they go back? Okay, so before Fersha Raman al Torah b'shem Yerushalmi, to call elu shechozin shabana onata oires tzrichin raya ledivreihem. Do they have to prove it, or do they just say, "Oh, I just built a vineyard, I'm going back"? Okay, but tzrichin levara divreihem lifnei sarat tzava shekenu ha'emes. You just can't say, "Oh, I built a vineyard, I'm going back." You have to prove it. Otherwise, you could have people leaving inappropriately. But what about the yare? In other words, we can sense this guy is tittering, this guy is shaking, this guy is really afraid, and therefore you don't need to prove it because you see it. He didn't bring the idea of proof. Meaning, the Rambam didn't say explicitly that a person who wants to go back because of Eras Isha or Bona Bias has to prove it. And the Minchas Chinuch was saying, well, the Rambam probably left it out because it's obvious. We can't just let everybody raise their hand and say, I built a house and go back without proving it. Okay. Velonis bara li me'ashas u'me'arambam im elu achozrim kegon boneh Nitna haTorah reshus. Here's an interesting question. Nitna Torah reshus lahem lachzor im rotzim, aval im rotzim liot b'milchama reshus biyadam. Is this chozrim? They have to go back, or they can choose to go back, but they could choose to stay. Now you realize why this is an issue. It's an issue because why are they going back? They're going back because we're afraid they're going to be distracted. They're not going to be focused enough. So it could be a hakira whether they have to go back or no. They could say, I'm going to be focused. I don't need to go back. The lashon of the pasuk is yelech v'yoshuv leveso. Sounds like a chova. Ditzarich lachzor v'osur lo lotzeis lemilchama. Right? It sounds like the pasuk is saying he's supposed to, and it would make sense why he's supposed to, because we were worried that somebody who has that in their mind, even though he thinks he won't be distracted, he might be distracted. V'nei hayare misvara mechuyev loshuv kedei shelo yimas. That the one who is afraid, so he for sure has to go back. He can't have an option. If he's afraid, he can't have an option. Aval ha'acherim kegon bona lo nizbarer, whether they have to go back or they could go back. V'ayin perush Rashi b'chumish shekosav pen kedai hu sheyamus im lo yishma ledivrei hakohen. Near the chova alav lachzor. Rashi sounds like he has to go back. So again, you can understand the Hakira here, because if the Torah is saying go back, it's because you may be distracted. Again, I mean, we have to just always think of that shiloh that Rav Asher Weiss got from the woman who was pregnant and whether she was in a dilemma whether to tell her husband or not because it's going to distract him. And she was thinking, maybe I shouldn't tell him because he's got to stay focused. And without knowing this, he's focused. And Rav Asher said, you got to know how he's going to react. But it's clear that if it's going to distract, it's inappropriate. Yeah, Josh. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we're saying that a bona bias, he has to prove that he's building a house.
No, that he built a house and he wasn't yet mechanech.
Oh, fair. Okay, that he built a house, he was not yet mechanech. Since he could just say, I'm afraid, and doesn't have to prove it, why would he ever come up with a false excuse? Assuming he wants to go home, what's the advantage to him to not just say, I'm afraid?
So, according to what the Chinuch, if you were paying attention to the Minchas Chinuch, he said that the reason why the Yoreh doesn't have to prove it is because we sense that he's afraid.
But isn't somebody who's willing to lie in order to get out of war afraid?
I can't answer that question. I can't. I hear the question. By the way, one of the reasons it says that we give a person, it does say that the people who are afraid of, you know what? You're raising an interesting question against the Minchas Chinuch, because it does say there are Meforshim who say that the reason why we have the excuse of that we have these excuses is because somebody who has Avera Biyado, according to the Shita, that it's Avera Biyado. So you get to go back if you have Avera Biyado. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to raise your hand and say, I'm sorry, Chief, I'm a Bal Avera, so I have to go back. That's embarrassing. Okay, so according to that Shita, there's an interesting question on the Minchas Chinuch, on the Chinuch, because the whole point of these was to use it as an excuse for the person who is a Bal Avera, so he doesn't have to admit that he's a Bal Avera, he can just claim he built a house. So according to that, he doesn't have to prove.
Right.
Okay. So according to what you're saying, if the person is afraid, then he'll say he built a house because he doesn't want to say he's afraid. I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, he seems to be going in the world of Rabbi Akiva because he's talking about Eid of Imo. It's obvious that he's afraid. So it sounds like we're talking about a real fear. In that world, I mean, there's somebody who apparently he's handling somebody who's claiming he built a house falsely, but would not qualify for the exemption of being afraid. Apparently, there's such a metzius.
No, I would say exactly the opposite. In other words, he's afraid, okay, but he doesn't want to admit that he's afraid. Again, this only works in the Shita that you don't have to prove. In the Shita that you have to prove, that goes against the whole idea of covering up for the Bal Avera. Okay, so I hear the question. It's an interesting question. Okay, we'll leave it as a. I mean, look, you see the last words of the. I'm sorry. In the previous one, we had the last words were I'm sorry. The last words of this section. V'tzarach iyun v'dinze. It's okay. So he has a tzarach iyun whether you have to go back or you could go back. I would say that your question is also a tzarach iyun. Also a tzarach iyun. Okay.
Would that question not apply to the person who's afraid, kamash ma'o, like Rabbi Akiva?
Wait, am I frozen? Am I frozen?
Well, you were, not now.
Okay.
Oh,
right. Sorry.
Yeah, not to us. Not to
all right.
Okay.
My problem.
Fine.
But getting back to the person who's afraid just because he's afraid of going into battle are not the other reasons for returning also a cover for him?
But I understand there are Rishonim, there are Meforshim who say that the reason we created these excuses are for people who are afraid of Averos and they don't want to admit it, so they claim one of these things and they can go back based on one of these things. There are Meforshim that say that.
No, but my question is not the one who's afraid of Averos, but like Rabbi Akiva or Rabbi Akiva's approach, a person who's afraid just because he's afraid to go into battle, not because of Averos. So
then, what are you saying? So he doesn't need any.
No, I'm asking: is he not also the purpose of the or at least part of the purpose of the other reasons for returning? Are they not also there for his benefit? The person who's he's not afraid of Averos. I mean, Rabbi Akiva's opinion.
He's afraid of battle, correct?
Afraid of battle, not because of Averos. He's afraid of battle.
But he doesn't want to admit it. Is that your question?
Well, in a sense, that's part of it. But I'm just saying what we're saying now about the other reasons or the other allowances for people to return. So you're saying that those are there to cover for the person who's afraid of his Averos.
Let's make order here. those three that are listed are absolutely the real reasons why the person can go back because of distraction from war.
Right.
That's real. Okay. The question is, does he have to prove it or not?
Okay.
So if you're going to say that, according to some Meforshim, that those are available excuses for people who didn't build a house, but they don't want to admit that they're afraid, then clearly you don't have to prove it. But if you say that you have to prove it, so then the only time you're able to go back without proving it is if you can demonstrate fear, and that's what the Minchas Chinuch says. Fear, according to Rabbi Akiva, is going to be obvious. The guy's shaking. The guy's like he's walking around. What am I going to do? He's infecting other people with his fear. So that's obvious. And
So we're
then
saying,
says the Minchas Chinuch, he doesn't have an option. He has to go back. The others may have an option, but he has to go back.
Yeah, but my question is, does it make a difference if the fear, the source of the fear is that he's afraid of his averas, or that he's afraid of going into battle?
That's a machlokas Rabbi Akiva. That's a machlokas Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi say that he has to be a Baal Avera. He's afraid because he's a Baal Avera. Okay.
Right.
And Rabbi Akiva says he doesn't have to be afraid of a Baal Avera. Obviously, if he's a Baal Avera, he's also going to be afraid. But Rabbi Akiva is more expansive. Rabbi Akiva is letting somebody who has no Averas, he's just afraid of war. That's a bigger expansion than Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yossi Aglili.
And so it would apply. So what we're saying would apply in either case, to either side of that machlokas.
No, I don't understand what you're saying.
So I guess I can't explain it, but I think we should just go weiter. Sorry.
Okay. And, according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili and Rabbi Yossi, okay, if you're just afraid of battle, that's not good enough, which is a little strange. But anyway, we paxton like Rabbi Akiva, so let's stay with Rabbi Akiva. Okay.
Just a quick question?
Yeah.
I think. What about somebody who objects to the war?
Conscientious objector?
Conscientious objector, or someone who politically objects to the war. Lots of those around.
Again, I would call that a conscientious. Well, I see. Usually we think of a conscientious objector as a global objecting to war, but there's a localized conscientious objector.
Yeah, he just doesn't think the war is right, or is not being executed properly, or whatever it may be. He's not afraid, and he didn't build a house, and he didn't get married. He's just a conscientious objector.
Again, in the Torah system, we would probably arrest him. Because we're going here with a government and a melech, and the melech has decided, he goes in, and again, I'm assuming there's a guy in the army. Remember, one of the things we have to understand is that we can't talk about everybody in the army. There's an army, and this is talking about a member of the army. So if there's a member of the army that says, well, you know what, I think this war is immoral, I'm not going in, we would probably arrest him. We wouldn't want him in the battle. If we would suspect it, we wouldn't want him there. But we wouldn't be just, okay, go home. We'd probably put him in jail.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. I want to see two Rambams.
He might be a Morid B'Malchus even.
Absolutely. Yeah, Daniel, you're right. I was very lenient with him. I only put him in jail. You're having him executed. You're having him executed.
Right.
Okay, so we want to start with the Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah. That's the first thing I want to see. Okay, and that's going to connect afterwards to the Yerushalmi, the two Yerushalmis we're going to see. Okay, I'm sorry, I got a long volume. Okay, so we're in Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah, and we want Perek Gimel. We're going to go through the first four halachos. This is about the importance of Talmud Torah. And you will see how it relates in a way that I think people are claiming a certain claim that people who are full-time learners should still have to go into the army for a certain reason. And I think that when we read this Rambam, we'll see that it's not an accurate argument, and we'll certainly see it in the Yerushalmi. Again, I'm only talking about a specific argument. The argument is the mitzvah of lo samad al dam re'echa. Okay, that there's a mitzvah lo samad al dam re'echa. There's a mitzvah of gemilus chasadim. Okay, and therefore that should require that should override the chiyuv or mitzvah of limud Torah. So the Rambam says in Perek Gimel.
Wait, let me get a bunch.
Perek Gimel Hilchos Talmud Torah. I didn't put it on the page because I assumed everybody has a Rambam. Okay, so Aleph is more of an intro, but it's important to set the tone because the Iker one that we need is Halacha Dalet. But we're going to start with Halacha Aleph. B'shlosha ketarim nichteru Yisrael, keter Torah, keter Kahuna, keter Malchus. This should remind you of the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, where it talks about Memches Dvarim Shatorah Niknes Bahem, but it starts by saying there were 3 ketarim. Keser Kahuna Zachar Bo Aaron, Shenemer V'Haita Lo Lazaro Acharav, Brit Kahunat Olam. Keter Malchus Zachar Bo David, Shenemer Zaro Olam Yeh V'Kiso Keshemesh Negdi. I want to just stop here for a minute because the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says that Keser Malchus is the highest level because it requires. It starts from the bottom. Keser Kahuna only requires 24 virtues. Keser Malchus requires 30 virtues. And Keser Torah Olal Kulam because it requires 48 things. And that's the Rambam that's the Mishnah. And Keser Torah Hare Munach Ve'omed, this is another difference. See, besides the fact that Keser Kahuna only requires 24, it's limited. Only Kohanim. Keser Malchus is more exclusive. Only Melech. 1. What about Keser Kahuna? Well, on the one hand, Keser Torah, the reason the Mishnah has to say that it's greater than the others because of the 48 things is because on the hierarchy, we're about to see that Keser Torah in the Rambam, Keser Torah hare munach ve'omed u'muchan l'kol Yisrael. It's equal opportunity employer. Kahuna is very limited. Malchus is even more limited. Torah is available to everybody, which is why they needed to prove that it's b'cholz at a higher level because it requires 48 things. But anyway, what's the source? That it's munach v'omed muchan l'kol Yisrael. Shenemar Torah tziv alanu Moshe morasha kehilos Yaakov. This is a legacy. It's an inheritance, and every Jew has that inheritance available to him. Kol misha yirtza yavo v'yitol. Okay, everybody, it's available to everybody. Shema Tomar Otam Katarim Gedolim Miketer Torah. Maybe you'll say that since they are exclusive, they are on higher levels because they're more exclusive than Keter Torah. Because Keter Torah is available to everybody. So therefore, there's a pasuk: Harayu Omer bi melachim yamluchu v'rozni michokuku tzedek bi yisharim yashuru bi sarim yashuru holamadata Keter Torah Gedolim Mishneya. That's royalty. That's the highest level of royalty. All right, it's even higher than Melech. Then Amru Chachamim. Now he's going to illustrate that. All right, your default is that if I have a Kohen Gadol, where normally we think Kohen Gadol is aristocracy, and a mamzer is a halachic mamzer. That's a defective person. So says the Gemara explicitly. The Rambam paskins it lahalacha. Amru Chachamim mamzer talmid chacham. Kodem lekohen gadol am haaretz. That 2 people are walking in the room. Normally, you would have the Kohen Gadol walk in first. And the mamzer afterwards. If the mamzer talmid chacham, he goes in before the Kohen Gadol. And you need a source for that, obviously. Shenemar Yikara hi mipninim. He is referring to the Torah. This is the pasuk of Yikara hi mipninim. Torah is more valuable than pearls. That's the literal pasuk. But the drasha is, it's Yikara hi, the Torah is even mipninim Kohen Gadol shenichnas lifnai v'lifnim. The Kohen Gadol is the one person who goes into the Kodesh Kadoshim 1 day a year. That sounds like he is the highest level. Torah is even more valuable than that. Yikarahi mipninim, even from the Kohen Gadol who goes in lifnai v'lifnim. Okay, everybody understand? The Rambam here is trying to emphasize the superiority and this importance of Torah. Ein lecha mitzvah b'chol mitzvos kulan shish kula keneged Talmud Torah, ela Talmud Torah keneged kol mitzvos kulan. Shat-Talmud mevi lidei maisa, lefikach ha-Talmud kodem la-maisa b'chol makom. Right, this is the Gemara in Kedushin, where there was a dispute. We're going to see it in the Yerushalmis also. Which is Gadol, Talmud or Maisa? Nimnu v'gamru Talmud Gadol, Sha Talmud mevi lidei Maisa. I hope everybody. I think we talked about this once. I hope everybody realizes that there's an internal contradiction in that statement. Talmud Gadol, Talmud maybe lidei Maisa. That sounds like Maisa's Gadol. Talmud is maybe lidei Maisa. So how can you say Talmud Gadol, Talmud maybe lidei Maisa? We'll talk about that when we see the Yerushalmis. But right now we're just accepting that as the Talmud is more important than the Maisa, because the Talmud brings to the Maisa. We'll see what that means. But here is the key halacha that I want to see. Haya lefonav asiyas mitzvah, the Talmud Torah. So you are involved in. You have now the choice, or you're either you can either learn Torah or do a mitzvah. Okay, so now we have to access the sugya, which I think we once talked about, of ha'osek b'mitzvah pater min ha'mitzvah. There is such a rule. If I'm doing mitzvah A, mitzvah B comes along, it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. I'm doing mitzvah A, osek b'mitzvah A, pater mi mitzvah B. Okay? So, and of course, what was your default in that system? The default of osek b'mitzvah was that if I'm doing mitzvah A and mitzvah B comes along, I treat it as if I am now confronted simultaneously with A and B. And if A and B are equal, what do I do? Mitzvah A, mitzvah B, they both come knocking on the door. What do I do?
You can do both of them, do both of them.
I can't do both of them. I got to make a choice. I can only do A or B. They both are knocking on the door. What do I do?
Adir? Osek b'mitzvah pater min ha'mitzvah.
No. I didn't start yet. I'm in the wait. You want to understand the default of osek b'mitzvah, pater min ha'mitzvah. The default is, what would I do? How do I figure out the default in osek b'mitzvah, and what's the chiddush of osek b'mitzvah? What would I do if they were both coming together?
Well, the mitzvah has there might be different
Equal mitzvahs, two equal mitzvahs.
two equal mitzvahs.
What would you do?
Can you give us an example? I don't know.
The answer should be very simple.
Chaviv, I don't know. If they're
Josh, what do?
You pick one.
Whichever one you want. I can only do one. They're both there. I can do whatever I want. Each one, I can choose either one. Everybody understands that when they're both together simultaneously, I can't do both. I do one. Now go to the osek b'mitzvah. I'm doing A, and there's no chiddush. We've got to understand that osek b'mitzvah, pater min ha-mitzvah, is a chiddush. That when I'm doing A and B comes knocking, it doesn't exist. What was your default? That you're doing A and B comes along, it's as if they came together, and the fact that you're doing A has no impact. And therefore, it's like A and B came together, and what do you do when A and B come together?
Both of them.
You do. I'm talking when you can't do both, obviously.
You do A because you're an A. You're already doing A.
Yes, and that's a chiddush of osek b'mitzvah pater min ha-mitzvah. What was the default? I needed a limud to tell me osek b'mitzvah pater min ha-mitzvah. What was your default without the limud?
You stop and do the new one.
Why?
Why?
Why do you stop A and do B?
Why?
Because if osek min ha-mitzvah pater min ha-mitzvah is a chiddush, then the
So
default was that you would have to stop.
What's the alternative to osek b'mitzvah pater min ha-mitzvah? A, I'm doing A and B comes knocking. Josh, we learned the sugya, so you can't participate on this one. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm doing A and B comes knocking. Without a special limud of osek b'mitzvah pater min ha-mitzvah, what would I do?
You do what you want.
Exactly. I can do whatever I want because it's as if they came together. The fact that I'm doing A is irrelevant. Now A is there and B is there. So the default is I do whatever I want. Comes along the chiddush and say, no, when you're doing A, B doesn't exist. Okay? You follow? That's the chiddush. Now, a guy is learning Torah and mitzvah comes along knocking on the door. What does osek b'mitzvah pater min ha-mitzvah say?
Keep on learning.
You stop A, you keep doing A and you ignore B.
Right.
That's if that is in the chiddush of osek b'mitzvah. I maintain that even in the default, meaning do whichever one you want. Well, if limud Torah is the most rewarded, most impactful mitzvah, why in the world would I ever stop that to do B? Even in the default world, I would keep doing A.
Yeah, but it depends. It depends on the mitzvah.
Wait. I don't understand. Why if mitzvah A, limud Torah, is the most important mitzvah? So even if they came together and you had a choice, what would you choose?
You can't box me in like that. It depends. We have cases where.
What does it depend on?
I don't know. It can depend on various considerations. Sometimes
Who
it
said,
seems like
wait. You're at the end game. I want you to get the process. Where'd you get that from? That it depends.
from things that we've learned.
Your simple understanding is that I'm learning Torah, the most impactful mitzvah. Why in the world would you ever stop that to do any other mitzvah?
Because maybe another mitzvah, you'll miss it if you don't do it now.
Well, that's always osik b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah.
No. I'm saying the other mitzvah that came along.
Yes. Well, obviously, when I'm doing anytime I'm doing mitzvah A, if I keep doing A and don't do B, I'll miss B.
But maybe there's a value to doing B when you can go back to A
and
afterwards. So then you go back to.
You said you made an incorrect statement in osik b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah. If I am doing A, again, it happens to be a machlokas Rashi Tosfos. Happens to be a big machlokas Rashi Tosfos. Okay, but the simple understanding is certainly according to Rashi. If I'm doing mitzvah A, mitzvah B comes knocking on the door, it does not exist. Even if I could stop A, do B, and go back to A. That's Rashi Shita. Clear. Anyway, let's see what the Rambam says here. I want you to appreciate what we're about to see. Haya lefanav asiyas mitzvah vit Talmud Torah. It sounds like he hasn't even started either one. Im efshar lemitzvah lehe asot al yedei acherim lo yafsik talmudo. So it looks like, it's interesting. It almost sounds like there's a contradiction in the scenario. It says haya lefanav asiyas mitzvah vit Talmud Torah, and then it says lo yafsik bit talmudo. So do we understand the scenario that he's learning already, or he's going to learn?
He's already learning.
He's already learning. It's clear that he's already learning. Yet the Rambam calls that haya lefanav Talmud Torah. Because Talmud Torah is an ongoing, constant mitzvah. Okay, so every minute is a lefan of Talmud Torah. So anyway, so he's there's another mitzvah, and it says im efshar la mitzvah lehasot al yedei acherim lo yafsik talmudo. Okay, that's an important rule we're going to see. If the mitzvah can be done by somebody else, you don't stop your learning. The im lav, but if it can't be done by somebody else, Yasem mitzvah v'yachzor l'talmudo. You stop your learning and you go back to the mitzvah. And again, now I want you to appreciate that that's a big question. You just got through. We know that osik b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah. So why do I stop Torah, which is a mitzvah, to go do another mitzvah? It's osik b'mitzvah pater min mitzvah. And even in the default world, where I can do whatever I want, why in the world would I stop limud Torah to go do another mitzvah?
It seems like
keep learning Torah. So we have an important rule here, and that's the Gemara that tells us this is how we have to understand how we resolve the contradiction, the internal contradiction of Talmud Gadol sha Talmud mevi lidei ma'isa. It's a contradiction. Talmud isn't good. If Talmud is mevi lidei ma'isa, then the ma'isa is Gadol. Talmud is a way to get there. So there are a number of answers, but the answer that resonates with me best, heard from Moshe Shapiro, and it's basically alluded to in the Maharal, is that we in the Memches Dvarim, we have Lomed al Manas Lelamed, Lomed al Manas Lasos. That the real mitzvah of Torah, Limud Torah, but maybe just another point that'll parenthetical, but it's important. There is no mitzvah, I'm going to say something sharp. There is no mitzvah to learn Torah. There is no mitzvah to learn Torah. There's only a mitzvah to teach Torah. So what are you doing when you're sitting in the Beis Medrash, either by yourself or with a chavrusa? You're teaching Torah. Who are you teaching Torah to? Yourself. So there's always a mitzvah to teach Torah. Okay? Torah, why? Why is that so important? Because God wants Torah to be more known in the world. Torah was given to the Jewish people, and the more Torah that is studied, the more Torah is known in the world. That's the goal. One of the ways Torah becomes known is when we do Torah. You study about tefillin, the mitzvah of tefillin is more known. When you put on the tefillin, that's a dimension of making Torah more known in the world. So when it says Talmud mevi lidei ma'isa, what it means is that authentic Talmud is almenat lasot. That's the real Talmud, is almanat lasot. So therefore, if you're learning Torah and a mitzvah comes and you don't do it, you just rendered your Torah into Talmud, lo almanat lasot. So therefore, it's the nature of Torah where it says Talmud mevi lidei maisa, that's the unit of Talmud Torah, is that it's lilmod almanat lasot. And that's why you have to stop if the mitzvah cannot be done by somebody else. You guys following the logic here? So if the mitzvah can be done by somebody else, so then if the mitzvah is being done, and therefore my Talmud is godol, okay? But if it can't be done, then my Talmud itself would be recharacterized as not almanat lasot if I just kept learning and ignored the mitzvah. Why is this important? The minute you say that there's a mitzvah out there, and you have to stop learning to do the mitzvah, we have to ask whether that's efshar la'asos al yedei acherim. Is it being done by others? Can it be done by others? In which case one doesn't stop learning. If it can't be done by others, then you have to stop learning. And that's why that's one of the very practical questions when we talk about this whole issue, is we have to know the reality on the ground. What is the reality? And again, can be done by others may have many, many, many dimensions. What does it mean it can be done by others? All I'm doing is I'm raising the issue that there is such a concept of mitzvah, efshar leheasot al yedei acherim. Let's read that Rambam again. Hayalefanav asiyas mitzvah v'talmud Torah im efshar la mitzvah leheasos al yedei acherim lo yafzik talmudo. V'im lav, meaning it can't be done by others, yaseh ha-mitzvah v'yachzor letalmud. Okay, that's again how this is the principle. How to apply it exactly? All of these questions are going to be very, very touchy in how to actually apply it. L'maisa. Okay, any questions till now? Okay, so now let's open up the Rambam. This is another famous Rambam quoted by one side of the argument, and we'll see that it's not so clear. There's something to it. Question is exactly how applicable it is. All right, so this is of Zroim at the very end of Matnos. It's the last halacha in Seder Zroim, Shemitah v'Yovel.
Rabbi Karlinsky?
Yeah.
Before we start the next one, aren't there some mitzvot that are just sort of continuous mitzvot, like living in the land of Israel, I'm doing a mitzvah. That doesn't mean I'm patur from all the other mitzvot. Or I'm wearing tzitzit. That doesn't mean I'm patur from all the other mitzvot. So Talmud Torah is also yomam v'layla. It's a continuous type of mitzvah. So,
okay. So I'll give you a quick, because I don't want, it's a whole sugya, and we've done the sugya a number of times in the yeshiva, so I'm pretty well versed in the sugya. Okay, so there's a machlokas Rashi Tosfos, and Tosfos asks this question: what does it mean if I can do it's in Maseches Sukkah and Maseches Brachos? The main place where it really comes out is in Maseches Sukkah. Okay, Hol Chedrachim Peturim Min HaSukkah. Okay, so wait, were you in the Return to Learn this year?
This year I was abroad.
You missed it. Okay.
Alas,
we talked exactly about that. Okay. So the idea of osek b'mitzvah, pater min ha-mitzvah, Tosfos says, what's going on here? Well, because I'm wearing tzitzis, therefore I'm pater from all the mitzvahs? Okay, so that doesn't make any sense. So if while I'm doing mitzvah A, I can also do mitzvah B, so of course I have to do mitzvah B while I'm doing mitzvah A. Okay? Rashi clearly argues on that. It's very clear. However, it's because of the definition of osek. When you're wearing tzitzis, you're not osek in the mitzvah of tzitzis. You're mekayim the mitzvah of tzitzis. Mm-hmm. And we only talk about an osek b'mitzvah, pater min ha-mitzvah. Not a mekayim mitzvah, osek pater min ha-mitzvah.
Got it. Okay? Like actually Talmud or something.
Yisrael is a mekayim mitzvah. Mm-hmm. Wearing tzitzis is a mekayim mitzvah. So therefore, you're not pater. You have to be osek. Okay, I hope that answers it in a
yeah, I guess that hit all my examples, though.
I mean, Tosfos holds and Mapitom. Tosfos holds if you can do B as well as A, of course you do both of them. But the Rashi holds not like that. Rashi holds it's a rule of osek. Once you're osek in A, if you're osek in A, you don't answer the B doesn't exist. Okay, B doesn't exist. Okay, so this is a Rambam in Hilchos Shemitah v'Yovel. It has to do with the Levium. So it's Perek Yud Gimel. I'm going to just see Halacha Aleph for context. Okay, we're going to see halacha aleph, tet, and then we're going to go to the last halacha. Aleph and tet are just for background. Okay, so the Rambam says, Shevet Levi. Okay, af al pi she'en lehem chelek ba'aretz, kvar kvar nitztavu Yisrael litein lahem arim lashevet umigrisheya. Meaning they were not, the land was not divided where Shevet Levi was not included in the division of the land between the 12 Shvatim. However, there's a mitzvah for every Shevet to give them some land. The Arim hem shesh Arim Miklat, Valeim Shtayim ve'arboim Ir, okay, 6 Arim Miklat and 42 other cities. V'kishimosifin Arim Miklat acheros b'yimei HaMashiach hakol Leviim. The Leviim own all the Arim Miklat. That's what they get. That's their chelek. But it's not part of the explicit division of Eretz Yisrael. It's given to them in every chet, in every nachla. Halacha tes. Did I say halacha tes? That doesn't look right. That doesn't look right. I think I meant yud. Halacha yud. Okay. Kol shevet Levi muzharin. Shelo yinchelu be'eretz Canaan. They're not allowed to own land in Eretz Yisrael. V'chein he muzharim shelo yitlu chelek bebiza b'shah shekovshin ese'arim. Remember we talked about dividing up spoils after battle. Levim don't share in the spoils. Shenemar lo yela kohanim alavim kol shevet Levi chelek v'nachla im Yisrael. They do not get any of the spoils of war. Chelek bebiza v'nachla be'aretz. They can't. Neither one are they allowed to have. V'cheinu omer be'artzon lo tinchal v'chelek lo yelecha betocham bebiza. And now it gets even more strict. Uven Levi o Kohen shenotal chelek bebiza loke. It's a lav to take part of the spoils of war. V'notal nachla be'aretz ma'avirin osomim. And if he took a part of the land, we don't give him malchus. We just throw him out. Okay. Now Yud Beis. V'lama lo zacha Levi benachlas Eretz Yisrael ubebizasa im echav. So why? It's not fair. Why doesn't Levi get a section in the land as well as in the spoils? Mipnei shehuvdal, Shevet Levi is separated. Lavod es Hashem lisharto. Ulahoros drochav hayisharim umishpotav hatzedikim l'rabim. They're there to teach teach the people Torah. Shenemar yoru mishpatecha liYaakov v'toratcha liYisrael. Lefikach huvdelu midarkei ha'olam. Because of their responsibility to be the teachers of Torah, they are separated. Lo orchen milchama kishar Yisrael. They don't go into war like the rest of the Jewish people. Lo nochlin. They don't inherit. Lo zochin la'atzman b'koach gufan. They have no personal benefits when things are given out on a per capita basis. Elohem chel Hashem shenemar barech Hashem chelo. They're the army of God. V'hu baruch hu zochel lahem shenemar ani chelkecha v'nachal hasefa. God is their portion. Okay, so that's very clear then that Shevet Levi, because of their communal responsibilities, are exempt from many other responsibilities. And then he says, okay, so that's pretty clear. And now we come to the really, I'll call it ambiguous, controversial, open to interpretation Rambam. V'lo Shevet Levi bilvad. This rule doesn't apply only to Shevet Levi. Ela kol ish v'ish mikol boy ha'olam asher nodva rucho oso, where his spirit has elevated him. V'hevinu mideo libadel lamod lifnei Hashem l'sharso u'la'avdol l'deis Hashem, where he's been elevated to want to serve and know God. V'holach yashar kavosh asoa elokim. He went straight. V'elokim asa right. V'elokim asa adam yashar. Hem bikshu cheshbonos rabim. Pasuk in Koheles. Upirek me al savaro ola cheshbonos harabim asher bikshu b'nei adam. He unloads all of the calculations, all of the cheshbonos, all of the motivations, all of the involvement in the physical world that other people have. He unloads that. Hare zenit kadesh kodesh kadoshim. He sanctified himself. V'yeh Hashem chelko v'nachlaso la'olam u'le'olmei olami. Again, he's equating these people almost like you can voluntarily go into be a Shevet Levi person. The Yizkalo b'olam hazeh davar hamaspik lo, and you will merit sufficient resources. K'moshe zochel lekohanim leviim. In other words, God certainly made sure that the Kohanim and Levim have enough. If you go into the system, God is promising you will also have enough. Harei David olav hashalom omer Hashem menas chelki kos itcha tumecha gorali. So people want to say that this should apply to people who are full-time Torah learners. They're like Shevet Levi because they're there to learn Torah and teach Torah. Before we go on, let's just take a look at the Radvaz. The Radvaz is in Ot Yud Beis, Halacha Yud Beis. Says the Radvaz. Everybody has a Radvaz, yeah? It's on the inside of the Lama lo zocha ad sofa per. Okay, so he's basically combining Halacha Yud Beis and Halacha Yud Gimel, that the reason Levi doesn't have anything is because they are responsible to teach Torah and they're responsible to be the teachers of Torah to the nation. Hu miyosher da'ato v'svaraso. Saying the Rambam made it up, meaning this is how he understands the reason for din. It's the Rambam's understanding of reason for din. V'digdakti b'dvarav. Says the Radvaz. I was medayek shekosav v'yizkelo be'olam hazeh davar hamaspik lo. What is the diuk? Shakadosh Baruch Hu yizakelo leharviach be'olam davar hamaspik lo v'lo sheyashlich atzmo al hatzibur. That this person has to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to provide and not turn to the tzibur and demand that the tzibur support him. The ayin b'mashakosa beferish mishnah v'lo kardum lachbor bo. Maybe we should also see that Rambam, but it's the famous Rambam that says that a person is not allowed to make money from Torah. Is not allowed to. Although maybe I should just remind you of which was the Mishnah that Moshe Heinemann used to introduce the opening kollel in Washington D.C. He quoted the Rambam. That basically said that a person, it's actually, it's not in this, it's back in Hilchos Talmud Torah, but the Rambam basically says, I'm sure it's a famous Rambam, everybody who's anti-kollel quotes it all the time, okay, is that a person is not allowed to take money to learn Torah, okay, and that a person who takes money to learn Torah, it's very, very negative. So he introduced that Rambam when in the opening of the kollel, the dedication of the kollel, Rav Moshe Heinemann read that Rambam. Now, what's kollel? Kollel is they're taking money from the community to learn Torah. And like everybody's aghast. What's he talking about? Oh, you just undermine our whole fundraising effort. And then he said, but a kollel is not people learning and asking the community to just give them Torah to learn. The community is getting a service from the kollel. This team is getting a service. And they're basically paying for services rendered. And that's a little bit, right? That's why the question always is, what's your motivation? And where's the parnasa coming from? And again, this Radvaz says that the Shevet Levi that we're talking about here is not the person who says, oh, I'm learning, so I have to go schnorr. If you're going schnorr, you're not learning. Okay? But he has to understand, HaKadosh Baruch will find a way to give him the money. Again, we're talking here about the very highest level people, high level bitachon. Anyway, so this Rambam it does open the door for the possibility of exemptions, because Shevet Levi is certainly exempt, and it's because they're teaching Torah, they are providing Torah to the community, and that opens the door again for certainly a justification for exemption. Again, we couple this with what we learned about Yisachar and Zvulun, or in Smach Zvulun b'Seisecha. Zvulun runs the war, Yisachar sits and learns Torah. There are, again, next week we'll talk off the record about the practicalities. Let's just quickly see the two Yerushalmi.
Karlinsky,
Yeah.
do you want to comment on the phrase at the beginning of that halacha, where the Rambam seems to be talking about even non-Jews, kol ba'ei olam?
Yep. I don't need to comment on it. You just said it. That's a good diuk in the Rambam. Important diuk in the Rambam. Apparently, this high level is not necessarily limited to Jews. It says kol ba'ei olam. Very, very strange. A lot of people are only on that. Good observation, Pinchas.
Do you think in general when
What? Go ahead.
do you think in general when people write? I mean, we see terms like that called ba'e olam. But often, right? Sometimes they say Yisrael ha. Who does something, and sometimes it says whatever Adam ki.
I don't think you will find kol boy olam that often.
Sometimes it's Adam or something like that.
Again, right? This is a specific phrase. Okay. By the way, it talks about Adam, whether it means that Adam in general in Chazal means everybody. Ha Adam means the Jew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But anyway, Pinchas's diuk is good. What to make of it is beyond the scope of what we're going to talk about. Let's quickly shift to the Yerushalmi. So if I sent you 2 links on Sefaria, the Yerushalmis are on the paper that I sent. But I think we really want to see it in the Sefaria because we can also see the commentaries. Okay, so if you want to open up I sent you the links for Sefaria. Where have I got it here? Oh, come on. Where do I have it? Come on. Oh, here we go. Okay, so let's start with the Psachim. Okay, the Psachim. I assume that everybody can find it with the link. So we'll read the Gemara. Okay, it's the Yerushalmi Psachim. Okay, does everybody have it?
Gimel Zayin.
Yeah, Gimel Zayin in the Sefaria. If you want, you can just follow
Yes.
the Yerushalmi you can follow the Yerushalmi on the sheet. If you don't have to open up Sefaria, I'll try to explain everything outside. But it's really valuable to see it because it's a very, very important Gemara. Okay, so Rabbi Abo, I'm in Psachim Gimel. Rabbi Abo shalach Rabbi Chanina Brei Yizke B'Tveria. All right, he wants him to be zoche in Tveria. He sent him to have schus in Tveria. Osun va'amrun, people came and told Rabbi Abahu, Gemal hu chesed. He's doing chesed in Tveria. Shalach ve'amar lei, hami bli en kvarim bekesarin, shlachticha l'Taveria. What, there aren't graves in Kesari where we came from that I have to send you to Tveria? Say them a what does that mean? Okay, that's if you want to open up the Korban Eid is a good perush here. All right, he says, what does kvarim b'Tveria mean? Kvar b'Kesarim means chesed. Chesed you could do at home. Well, I sent you, right? I sent you to learn Torah. I don't need to send you to Tveria to do chesed. Chesed you can do in Kesaria. I sent you to learn Torah. Shekvar nimnu v'gamru. I'm back in the text. Shekvar nimnu v'gamru be'aliyas beit arus bilod Talmud gadol kodem lemaisa. A little bit different than what we have in Kiddush in our Bavli. Okay, so he's telling him, "What? I didn't send you to do Chesed. I sent you to learn Torah because Chesed you could do here." And he's saying that I wanted you to do Talmud Torah, not Chesed. Rabbanan de Kesarin Amrin Chada de Tamar b'Shiyei Shami Sheyase. They learned Pshat. That what does it mean that you learn Torah instead of the Chesed when there are those that can do it? Yesham Misha Yasa Maisa Kodem. I'm sorry. I'm not reading good. B'sheyesham Misha Yasa. Avalim Ein Sham Misha Yasa, meaning the mitzvah can't be done by anybody else. Hamaisa Kodem. The mitzvah's first. Okay, and so they're not sure what Rabbi Abba was upset about. Continues the Gemara. Dilma Rabbi Chia bar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Ima Anun lemeise gabe Rabbi Elazar. Omar Lon an Havyasan Amrinle Gemal Choset. So let's see how, right? So that the example of the balance between the mitzvah and the Talmud Torah is that it happened like this. Again, so Rabbi Chaya, Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Ima, Anun Lemesi Gabi Rabbi Elazar. They were late in coming to the Beis Medrash. They came late to the Seder. Omar Lon an Havisun. So Rabbi Elazar said to them, "Where were you?" Amrina le Gmal Chesed. We were doing Chesed. Amrun lon v'lo have taman choranan. Right? Wasn't there somebody else to do the Chesed? Amrin le Mogur have. Some of them, unfortunately, learn Mogur have means it was a ger. The ger had no relatives, and therefore there was nobody else to do the mitzvah. Again, what are we illustrating here? That there is a conflict between Talmud Torah and Chesed, Talmud Torah and mitzvah. But it's clear that they said, well, we had to do the mitzvah because it was a ger who had no family, and therefore that trumped the Talmud Torah. But if there were other people to do the mitzvah, he's saying, why did you go to do the mitzvah? You should let the mitzvah for other. If there are other people to do the mitzvah, why are you leaving the Torah? That seems to be pretty clear. If you want to quickly jump over also to the Chagiga, we have a similar thing in Chagiga. Again, I sent the other link where it says Nimnu be'aliyas beit aris hatalmud kodem lamaisa. Again, this is a little bit of a different language than the Bavli. The Bavli is Talmud Gadol, Shat Talmud Mevi Lidei Maisa. This is clearer. Talmud Kodem Lamaisa. The Talmud precedes the Maisa. Rabbi Abo Havi B'Kesarin, Shalach LeRabbi Chanina Brei Mizak Mazki B'Tveria. Again, the same story. He went him to do zchus, to do merit in Tveria. Shalchun v'amrun le Gemal Hu Chesed. He's doing Chesed. Shalach v'kosav le Hamibli and Kvarim B'Kesarin Shlachticha LeTiveria. What I sent you to I had to send you to Tveria to do a mitzvah that you could have done. Ein Kvarim means there's no chesed available here in Caesarea. For nimnu ba'aliyas beis arus below the Talmud kodem lemaisa. So I sent you there to learn Torah. Aren't Rabbana de Kesarin Amrin hada de'at amar b'shiyesham mishiyase. When do we say that the Talmud is kodem lemaisa? When there's somebody else to do the maisa. Avalim ein sham mishiyase ha'maisa. Shiyase ha'maisa kodem l'Talmud. Diloma, an example, Rabbi Chia bar Velsi, Rabbi Ami, Inan Meisi Lagabe Rabbi Lazar. They were late to the base medrash of Rabbi Lazar. Amar Lon An Hav Yusin Yom and Din. Where were you today? Amar Lo Gemal Chesed. We were doing Chesed. Amar Lon Velo Havi Taman Choranyan. Weren't there other people who could have done it? Amar Le Magir Havi. It was a ger, and therefore there was nobody else to do it. Again, I think so. We see very clearly from these two Gemaras in Yerushalmi, basically what the Rambam paskins, okay, which is not so clear in the Bavli, but here is very clear, is that Talmud Gadol Shat Talmud Mevi Lidei Maisa, and therefore the Talmud has to lead to Maisa, and it's the Gadol. But when there's a mitzvah to be done that can't be done by others, you have to stop the Talmud Torah to go do the mitzvah. If it can be done by others, then the Talmud is still the primary mitzvah to be done. Any questions? Because basically, I'm finished now with the sources. I don't think we're going to see any more sources. We pretty much covered all the sources that are relevant. They can be interpreted lots of different ways. And next time, I'll give you my take on it in practical terms, which I think most of you will pretty much, I don't think it'll be too controversial what I'm going to say, even though at two extremes they hold what I'm going to say is controversial, because they all disagree with the extremes. But unless there's any other questions, we'll meet up on Wednesday for an unrecorded session.
Thank you.
Okay. Beseder Gamur. Okay. Everybody, Kol Tuv. See you on Wednesday.
Thank you.